All right, let's dive right in. Today we're looking at a blueprint for building modern, data-driven Flutter apps. The kind that can actually scale without turning into a tangled mess. If you've ever found yourself wrestling with backend data, you're going to want to see this.
This is the big question, isn't it? It's the central challenge so many of us face. As your app gets bigger, trying to fetch, manage, and display data can get really messy, really fast. So how do you start a project with a structure that's actually built to last?
So we're going to build our understanding of this whole architecture piece by piece, layer by layer, just like a real blueprint. We'll start with the data itself, the absolute foundation, and then work our way out to the user interface and finally, the tools that hold the entire thing together.
Okay, first things first. We're starting at the bedrock of any data-centric app, the models. This is where we lay down the law for what our data should look like. Think of the model layer as a super strict set of blueprints, but for your data. Before any information from a server is even allowed into your app, it has to fit these rules perfectly. This simple step helps prevent a whole class of common bugs, like unexpected null values or the wrong data type sneaking in.
Now, to build these really solid, robust models, this architecture uses a fantastic package called Freezed. It is specifically designed for creating clean, reliable, and honestly boilerplate-free data classes in Dart.
So, why Freezed? Well, it offers this amazing combination of benefits. First, it gives you immutable objects. That means once a model is created, it can't be changed. This is a huge win for preventing weird bugs because your app's state becomes way more predictable. Plus, it just wipes out tons of boilerplate code, gives you safety checks before you even run the app, and handles all the messy JSON conversion stuff for you. It's a real game changer.
Okay, so we have our blueprints for the data. Awesome. But how do we actually get the data from a server into our app? Well, that's the job of the API adapters. The key word here is isolation. Seriously, instead of making network calls from random places in your UI code, you create this one dedicated bridge. This makes your app so much easier to test and maintain because all the messy details, HTTP requests, headers, error handling, it's all contained in one single predictable place.
This slide shows the flow perfectly. Let's walk through it. The UI says, hey, I need some user data. The adapter layer, using the super popular DIO package, goes and makes the actual network call. The server shoots back some raw JSON, which is then immediately and safely parsed into those nice freezed models we just defined. The beautiful part? The rest of your app never, ever has to touch raw, unsafe data.
Okay, the data has arrived safely inside our app. Now what? How do we manage it? How do we make sure it's available to the screens that need it? And crucially, that everything stays in sync. This is where state management comes in. It's basically the brains of the operation.
And this is a hurdle every single Flutter developer has to jump. You have to ask, is this piece of data, say the text inside a search bar, only needed on this one screen? Or is it something more important, like the logged-in user's profile, that needs to be accessible from literally anywhere in the app? A good architecture needs a solid answer for both scenarios.
So this template proposes a really clever two-pronged solution. For that global, app-wide state, it uses Riverpod. This is a great choice for its compile time safety and the fact that it's not tied to the widget tree, which makes your data layer super robust. But for that local state, the stuff that's only tied to a single widget's lifecycle, like an animation controller, it uses Flutter hooks. This is smart because it stops you from cluttering up your important global state with temporary UI data.
All right, let's move on to the part of the app the user actually sees and touches, the UI, and just as important, how they move around inside of it. This quote really hits the nail on the head when it comes to modern navigation. Instead of giving the app turn-by-turn directions like push this page, pop that page, you're essentially giving it a map of all the possible routes. This makes your app's flow so much easier to understand and manage, especially when you start dealing with things like deep linking. And to pull off this clean, declarative approach, the template uses GoRouter. It's a really popular package that simplifies all your routing logic by mapping URL-style paths directly to your widgets. It makes your navigation both robust and predictable. So we've built all these distinct, separate layers, models, adapters, UI, but how do we manage all of them in one project without it becoming a total mess? This is where your project tooling becomes absolutely essential. Now, this template doesn't just separate concerns in theory. It does it physically. The entire application is actually broken down into smaller, separate packages that all live inside the same repository. Your model code lives in its own model package. Your API code lives in an adapter package, and so on. Trying to manage all of these packages by hand would be a complete nightmare. That's why this architecture leans on a tool called Melos. The best way to think about Melos is like an orchestra conductor for your whole project. It lets you run commands, manage dependencies, and handle versioning across all your packages from one central simple place.
And this brings us right back to the question we asked at the very beginning. The benefits of doing this are huge. You get a crystal clear separation of concerns, fantastic code organization, and because the packages are independent, you can easily reuse your model or adapter layers in totally different projects. It just makes the entire application easier to maintain and, most importantly, easier to scale over time.
So, when you put it all together, Freezed, Dio, Riverpod, GoRouter, and Melos, you're not just getting a random collection of packages. What you're really getting is a complete, logical, and robust blueprint for building some seriously sophisticated, data-heavy applications in Flutter. Look, this architecture gives you clear answers right from the start for data modeling, state management, and overall project structure. It really sets you up for success. So the only question left is, could this be the blueprint you've been looking for on your next big project?